as Ryan mentioned, I'm an online learning librarian at Syracuse University Libraries, and part of my duties are creating lots and lots of videos and other different types of digital learning objects, and also helping other folks at the library learn how to create these. I collaborate a lot with graduate students and my colleagues at the library, and we have dozens and dozens of videos and other tutorials, learning objects, things like that. So I'd say we've learned quite a bit in the last 5 or 6 years since I've been there. A lot to learn. Things are always shifting technologies, but hopefully today I'll show you what we're doing and some other ideas as well for about making videos. Okay, so I'll just quickly start off with a little introduction about videos, why they're helpful, and why it's important to consider making videos for your libraries. Then we'll explore some of the creation process. I have a background in instructional design, so I'm probably a little bit more thorough and methodical than it might require a lot of times. But I think the planning process is important if we want to do this correctly and consider things like accessibility and inclusion. And at the end, as Ryan mentioned, we'll have some time for question and answers, and hopefully we have plenty of time for that for question and answers as well. Okay, so just starting with the basics. What is an instructional video? I don't want to kind of say the obvious, but instructional videos are usually brief videos with focused content and outcomes. I could tell you the very first video that I created 7 years ago was an hour, and we didn't have focused outcomes. We just turned on the microphone and started recording. So having a focused outcome and focused outcomes for your video is tremendously important, especially as we consider people's attention spans watching videos. They could often be made for specific audiences. They could be for all of your patrons, all of your students, or for specific audiences, such as your faculty or your colleagues in the library, if it's the staff training video, for example. Videos could reach many more people than in-person instruction. Some of our videos at the library have been watched thousands of times, which is fantastic, many more times than we could reach those students and users in person. Videos could help people at the point of need. So if you have a database that your users use that's particularly tricky, you could possibly link to a video demonstrating that database right next to the database link, and that could help the students and the users right at the point of need of that database. And one great thing about videos is that they could be shared in several contexts simultaneously. So you could embed the video on your library website, for example, on the videos page, the how-to page. You could send a link to the video in an email to your users. You could share it via social media, for example. So one video could be used many, many times. It's a reusable learning object. And so very, very convenient. You make it once and then can reuse it many times and reach different audiences in different ways. Okay, just a couple of sample videos that libraries have created. Here's one that I made this spring. At SU Libraries. It's adding a link to our library resources to instructors' Blackboard courses. It's a really short one, just 1.5 minutes long, and we've had quite a few views with this video so far. And so that was something that was really successful, helping some of our LibGuides that we use to explain library resources. Now they're directly embedded in courses because of this video helping faculty to do that. Second example, I'm not going to play any of these videos, but here's one from my home library, the Community Library of DeWitt and Jamesville. I found on their website a video about learning with your librarian on how to use Skype. Really fantastic video. And another one, it's a longer webinar. This is part of the CLRC video series. And this one's 61 minutes long, so fundraising beyond the book sale. And so all of these are different types of videos, different lengths, different audiences, some internal, some external. And so there's a wide variety of ways that you could use videos to reach the people that you'd like to reach. Okay, so planning and design. Okay, so as I mentioned, I love to plan. I'm a big planner. I think this is a really important part of the video process. I will say it's a lot easier just to hit record and start speaking, start recording your screen, and then hit stop. But if you really want to have the impact that you want with your videos, then planning is going to be really important. So as I mentioned, viewer attention spans. If people aren't getting what they need from the video quickly, they're going to stop the video, stop watching. And so you really want to maintain the interest of the viewers throughout the video. Planning includes choosing the technology and software. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. Accessibility. So if you just hit record and start recording, you're going to miss a lot of important accessibility steps that you'll need to make sure that everyone could to engage with the video in the ways that you'd like. Inclusive practices. We'll talk about narration scripts and different ways that you can make your videos more inclusive. I think planning also is a great way to build collaboration at your library, either with your library colleagues or with some of the users who might be watching the videos that you create. And it's also important not just to think about the videos once you post it on your website, it's done, you could walk away forever. Videos have a life cycle, and so you have to think about video maintenance and video archiving and things like that as well. So we'll talk about that at the end. So planning, the more you could think about the entire process of the video that you'd like to create, I think it's going to be an easier process and more effective process, an impactful process for your videos. Okay, so we talked about learning outcomes. It's really important if you want to have keep viewers' attention to have shorter videos. A lot of people say 4 to 5 minutes is the maximum length of videos that you'd like people to, that you can expect people to watch a video. In my opinion, it really depends on the audience, what the content is. If you have faculty who are watching a video, they could probably go more than 4 to 5 minutes, especially if it's something that is especially important for their functioning as faculty members. So 4 to 5 is generally a guideline, but it's not a solid kind of a guideline. You could go beyond that or shorter than that, as you saw in the examples. So learning outcomes, it's really important, I find, to identify the outcomes before starting a video. I'd like to think that there's 1 or 2 outcomes per video, unless it's a longer video. And just to give you some examples, going back to that, adding a link to the to Blackboard, library resources in Blackboard, the 2 outcomes that we had for this is that after watching this video, faculty and instructors will understand the importance of embedding library resources into their courses in Blackboard. And the second one is related to faculty will have the skills and knowledge to be able to do that themselves. So, so those were the 2 main outcomes for that. Anything else that didn't relate to those outcomes, we excluded from the video just to keep it concise and focused and more watchable for the faculty. Okay, so still in the planning design tips, as we mentioned, keep the videos focused, tied to objectives. It's an easy way to estimate the length of your videos as you're creating them, especially if you use a narration script, as we'll talk about. 150 words approximately is 1 minute of video. So if you have a 600-word narration script, that's going to be roughly 4 minutes of a video that you'll create. And depending on how long you want your video, if you find out that the script is too long, that'll help you edit the video, the narration script, before you actually get into the recording. So that could be really helpful. Gathering feedback and collaboration is helpful. I've actually really enjoyed the collaboration process. I feel like if I create a video that relates to that some of my subject librarians or colleagues might use, I've really enjoyed reaching out to them with a drafted narration script and asking for their feedback. I feel like that's a great way to build strong relationships at my library. Getting feedback from users is a really great way to get them engaged and buy in with the library as well. So this could be a really great tool to build that type of collaboration and connection at your library. And as we've mentioned, please consider using narration scripts for planning. We'll talk about those. And there's pluses and minuses to narration scripts, and we'll get into those in a second. But before we do that, I see some in the chat. Are there any questions yet, Ryan?
Just one about slides being shared, but you're going to be sharing those afterwards.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions before we keep going?
There was also a question that just came in as you were asking about scripts. How important do you think they are? You talked about that a little bit, but if you wouldn't mind expanding just a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic segue. Thank you, whoever. So narration scripts. I think they're tremendously important for a lot of reasons. Let me just show you an example of what a narration script is for those of you who haven't used them. So 10 or 15 years ago, I worked at National Geographic Television, and I stole kind of the script template from that career. It's really a 3-column script. So one, you just have a numbered column so that you could refer to the rows easily. The second middle column is where you write the narration. draft the narration that you're going to speak, and then the very important right column is the visuals column. And so everything from the text on the screen, any sort of visuals that you're going to include, images, you could have links to the images, really keep track of the visuals that you're going to have for the narration script. So before we get to so to answer the question about why these are important, I think it's really important to plan the video with narration script. It does take extra work, but as I mentioned, it could really help build accessibility into your video. One really important part about accessible videos is that you want to make sure that the essential information that viewers get doesn't just come from the images and the visuals on the screen, but also through the narration. And so anything that you find to be essential, you can't assume that people are going to get by looking at the video. So if you, for example, talk about how to access a database and you demonstrate visually how to enter that database and where to click, in your narration script, it's a really great opportunity to verbally explain. You know, you're going to click on the box that says, click here on the top right side of the page, and just give as much verbal description as if there were no visual accompanying accompanying visuals to your slide. So if someone only had the narration script, only had the audio, could they still access all the information that you're trying to share through the video? So accessibility in itself, I think, is a really fantastic reason to create a narration script. Okay, objections to using narration scripts. I know it does take extra time to draft this, to process it, go through this process. It's easier just to hit record and create a video. We've all done that. Sometimes it is appropriate, just to do that if you're recording a short video for, one-time use with an instructor, for example. It's not necessarily appropriate or easy if you're doing a 60-minute webinar. I promise you, I have not scripted everything I'm going to say to the word right now. Even though this video is going to be recorded. It does present challenges, narration scripts, especially if you're going to do a screen recording demonstrating a website, for example, and then you record the narration separately. It does take some practice to learn how to sync up the narration that you've recorded to the video. And so there are some trade-offs with narration scripts. The other thing is a lot of people say that they don't like reading from a narration script. It could lose spontaneity. You could sound robotic. That certainly is the case, but I think the more practice that you have with reading from scripts, then the easier it gets as well. So certainly trade-offs, but I think there are some benefits as well. So for those of you who want to try narration scripts, I've created here a narration script template. It's exactly like the one that I just shared on the slide. If you want to use your QR code or wait until these slides are shared, I think later in the week, I believe Ryan said, then you could access it that way. And so when you click on get to the website, it's a Google Doc. It's going to ask you to make a copy just so that the original is intact, and you can use this script to draft your narration. And so one thing I love about Google Docs using that for the narration script is that I could send the link to people I'm collaborating with. And so we could all use one central document. We could edit it together. If people have comments that they'd like to put, they could put comments on the side, and all of that feedback is shared in one location. And so, so this is my preferred method of using narration scripts. My university is now requiring us to use Microsoft Teams for this. I'm a little sad because it doesn't work as well, but I think with Google Docs, it's really, really fantastic for collaboration. Okay, so some tips using narration scripts. Like I said, you don't have to use these all the time. I don't, but I think they're really, really great ways to improve your videos. One important thing is when you use the rows of the narration script, just to make sure that the visuals and the narration align with what you're trying to say. You don't want to have people trying to figure out what's being shown while they're listening to words where there's a little disconnect between those two messages, because then your brain's just trying to do too many things at once. So try to keep it simple, show what you're actually talking about through the narration so that people could follow along easily. The second bullet point there is what we just talked about. Make sure that any information that you show visually is also conveyed through your narration, through your words. I find that if you just hit record, oftentimes that's one of the first things that that people do in recordings, quick recordings, will forget. They'll just assume that everything that is visually shown is being included in narration as well. So narration scripts really help with that part of the accessibility. It also helps, narration scripts also help with inclusive language and examples. And so I think a lot of times when we're just speaking ad lib, you know, off the cuff, a lot of times we use words or phrases that we wouldn't have used, wouldn't intend to use, but we use them. They're built into us, unfortunately, a lot of times. And so if you have a narration script, it gives you one extra chance to go over the language and make sure that you're using the words that you'd like to use to in your video. And same thing with examples. If you're doing database examples, for example, then the keywords that you use, you could use those another opportunity to really choose the examples that you want through narration script by kind of taking a step back and planning for that as well. And as I mentioned, collaborating with colleagues, one of my favorite part about making videos, sharing drafts, getting their input. There's often things that I completely don't think about when I'm making videos, and am really grateful for the feedback from my colleagues in making videos. And so I would say that's the most fun part, not the editing, not the recording of narration, but the collaboration has been really wonderful. Okay. Any questions about the narration scripts before we move on?
No questions at the moment.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Okay, so the next part, we're going to talk about video components. And so if you are doing a little bit more, you know, laid out process, your plan for creating this, then you'll have to think about the video components. And oftentimes we just think about hitting record and creating the video that way. We do that, you know, with Zoom, with Right Now, for example. But there really are quite a few different components that you can include in the video. So audio and narration, you know, that's something that we've talked about. PowerPoint slides, I'm including these. And so that's something that are often used in videos. Screenshots or grabs, that's something you can include if you just want to demonstrate, show people what, for example, the library homepage looks like. Then you can use a screen grab for that. Screen recordings are a little bit different. That's more of a video of a screen. And so if you want to demonstrate, like I said, a database, that's a really great asset for that. If you're going to use live video, and we don't do this very often in my library, but we did use it for, I believe it was a video on how to reserve study rooms. And so we showed students going up to the circulation desk in this case, and included live video, but we don't do that very often at my library. It is sometimes trickier to do. You need actors or participants in the process, but that is something that you could do as well. Video footage found online. And so depending on the licensing and copyright issues with that, I've included footage that I found online. I created a video about peer review for students and scholarly communication, and I found a really great video online that was published with a Creative Commons license. And so I was able to use that video, edit it based on the license that was published with, and include it in my own video. So I didn't have to create that entire video that I made about scholarly communications from scratch, but I was able to build on what other people have done and what they've allowed me to use based on Creative Commons. And of course, images. So you can get images from a lot of places, and I have some images here as well. So, so when you are creating your video, you want to think about not just, you know, the narration, of course, but which of these assets components are going to be most impactful for your viewers. And so I think a lot of times PowerPoint is probably the most dominant way that people make videos. It's easiest. You could just type out your slides ahead of time and read the narration. It's really quite easy to sync up the narration that you've recorded with the PowerPoint, and so that's often a default. Screen recordings are probably another way, but really, before you create the video, the narration script should help you think about each of the rows that you've created. You know, what do you want people to see with this? Should it be a still image? Should it be moving video, and so forth as you create your video? Okay, so we've talked about screen recording. So this is, you know, these are software options that you could use to record videos of your screen. I use Camtasia. This is something that we use at our library. I'll talk about this a little bit more. It's a really robust tool that offers pretty much everything you need to record narration and so forth. Camtasia is available. TechSmith captures for free, which is really great. It's the same company that makes Camtasia, and it's a less robust version of Camtasia in terms of screen recording, screen grabs. They don't publicize the software very often, but it is a really wonderful free tool that's available from TechSmith. They have another product called Snagit that I personally use that I really love in collaboration with Camtasia. If you wanted to record, you could just use Zoom, your Teams, or any other sort of Skype, any other sort of video sharing platform that you have. You could just hit record and then edit that video that's produced that way. And there's other options as well that you can use. So lots of options. We use Camtasia, like I said, but free is sometimes the best way to do things as well. Screen to GIF, yeah, many options to use for recording screens. Okay, so now screenshot software. If you just want to take a static shot of your screen, there are many options for this. The easiest, there's some built-in commands with your computer. So if you have a Mac, Shift Command 4 is what I use. PC, it's Command Shift 3. And so these are probably the easiest ways to do things. But once again, Camtasia, TechSmith, Capture, and Snagit are also really fantastic ways that give you additional power and tools for getting screen grabs and editing those grabs as well. Okay, some tips about video assets. So we talked about this a little bit, but choose based on what your outcomes are and what would most help the users. So if you think that the easiest, demonstrating a database through recording would be the best way, then that would be obviously make the most sense for the asset that you use for that as well. Snipping tool, great for screenshots, absolutely. As we talked about a little bit, make sure that you have permissions for the items that you'd like to use in your videos. So if you're not sure that whether an item's under copyright or not, I would probably say exclude it from your videos. So this goes for everything from images, videos, audio effects, photos. It could be a copyright issue or a licensing issue, but there are really great ways to find free usable videos and images to use in for your videos. So Google Images has a tool. If you click on the tool button, it'll allow you to filter through the Creative Commons licenses that often say allow for reuse, editing, things like that. Really fantastic. And so, yeah, just lots of different ways. So if you just Google, for example, Creative Commons images, there's going to be a lot of great resources that you could use for your videos as well. Okay. Any
there was
questions?
one question, John, before you go to the next section. Do you find that certain video assets tend to keep attention more than others? Of course, it all depends on what you're showing.
That's a great question, Ryan. I would say any type of video asset could turn people off from watching. It really has to do with how well you've chosen the video asset. So, the screen that's up right now, that's just a solid blue screen with a couple of words. This is probably not the best choice for a video. So keep this type of image off your video as long as possible, if that's an option. Yeah, just whatever it is at the moment that you're really trying to convey. Obviously, videos, moving pictures are more flashy, but you also don't want to go to the other end of just having kind of cosmetic or interesting photos that are more distracting, because that could really turn people off from the message that you're trying to share as well. So there's a fine balance between keeping people's attention and kind of helping them lose the thread of what you're trying to convey. So great question. But yeah, it all depends. If you're trying to make a database, then demonstration, then live video is going to make the most sense. If you're trying to just convey information like I am today, for the most part, then PowerPoint is going to be most helpful as all. Yeah. Think about what annoys you most in TikToks. Yes. Yeah. And what's really important too, is that we all have experience with videos, and so we're all in a sense, very experienced consumers of videos. And so bring your own experience to creating this as well. So yeah, great questions.
I would think that simple would also be important too. Like you don't want to overwhelm with a very complex image, especially if it's going to be up for a short period of time and you're moving on to the next part of your video, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Should we move on to audio recording? So one of the things that I really love about making videos, it feels like for me personally, it's really brought in a lot of my personal background. Before I was in TV, I was in radio, and so I got some audio experience there. And so yeah, I feel really fortunate that making videos for library kind of taps into all these other careers, and it wasn't just kind of abandoned along the way. So I find this part to be really fun. Okay, so audio recording, this could be just really easy, as easy or complicated as you want to make it, basically. And so basically what you need for audio recording when you are, after you finish the narration script, is just a quiet space. Our official recording studio in Bird Library, where I work, has the worst HVAC system in the world in terms of noise. And so we can't use that for recording audio like it was meant to be. And so we didn't even think about that when we designed the space. And so just think about the space, go in there, listen to it, and just see if it's going to work. I often, when I'm at home and I'm recording, I often like to go outside because I find that it's outside, not in the wintertime here, of course, but that there's often less noise outside around my house than there is inside the rooms because of HVAC and things like that. So you could use to record audio either a dedicated microphone or a headset like I'm wearing right now. Sometimes the audio quality is good enough just to use one of these. The built-in microphone for your computer could be good enough. What I would recommend is that just test whatever setup you have in the location that you're planning to record, and hopefully you're pleased with the level of the audio quality that you've been able to capture. But if not, then either try a new tool, a new device, or else go to a new location. Different software, once again, Camtasia is what I go to for recording audio. Soft surfaces are very important as well. Yes, you don't get echo. So for audio software, Camtasia, once again, I think it's really great. You could actually paste your narration script into the Camtasia software and read along with it while you record. Audacity is a free software. I'm sure Ryan has other examples, but those two pretty much I think are what most people use for most audio editing at libraries that I'm aware of, at least. But lots of great options. Audacity is free. Really, really fantastic piece of software. And one other piece of advice about recording audio is to try to record all of the audio for one video in one session. This is because if you have to record a couple of lines over again, it's going to be very noticeable. The audio situation, the recording situation is going to be a little bit different. And so those lines are just going to pop out and be a little bit jarring for the listeners. If you've ever listened to public radio or This American Life, whenever there's a transition, they always play 10 or 15 seconds of music. And that's kind of to cleanse your palate between the audio recording sessions so that you don't notice that disconnect between the audio recording sessions there. So try to do it all at once and you won't run into that issue. Okay, so here is my audio setup that I use at home, and at my university we have something similar. We use a Blue Yeti microphone. It's available a lot of places, around $100, very commonly used for library videos. The pop filter in front of it, as you can see on the right, this is for blocking the gusts of wind that come from your mouth and getting those annoying little noises that we make unintentionally with a microphone. And my very fancy audio setup, my homemade sound booth, is just a banker's box and acoustic foam that I ordered online. And so that entire system, if I could do the math, is about $125, and it looks it doesn't look very great, but it works fantastically for our needs for the audio. So it's very transportable. We could bring that to different spaces, bring it outdoors, like I said, and really have that. So I have one of these at home for whenever I record. We have one at the library as well. Just a fantastic setup for recording. Okay, just a few tips about recording. So someone asked earlier about what the great benefits of narration scripts here. I think one of the best things is that if you don't use narration scripts, it's got to be the subject matter experts who record the videos, right? It's got to be librarians who record, and probably the same one or two librarians who do all the recordings at the library. If you have narration script, then suddenly anybody can be the narrator of your video. And this opens up the possibility for having a wider range of voices, either students, colleagues, faculty, patrons. You could ask basically anyone you want to read the narration if they'd be willing to do that. And so over winter break, I had her do a quick recording. I asked my wife to read the narration just so that there wouldn't be another one at my library with me doing the voiceover. And so without a narration script, I wouldn't have been able to ask her to help out with that narration. So that's another great reason why to use narration script. So yeah, so I like to print out the scripts in a larger font, and that so that people don't have to kind of fumble over the pages while they're recording. Practice reading it, especially if there's going to be a non-subject matter expert who's doing the reading. And I love to be in a room if there's one of my librarian colleagues or library colleagues who's recording narration. I love to be in the room and to follow along on the narration script. Oftentimes I'm doing the controlling the software as well, but when you're a little bit nervous and you're reading from a page, you'd be surprised at how often you forget a line, how you forget a word, you switch words around. And so having somebody else in the room to say, you know what, if you could reread line number 32 right there, we didn't get a clean recording of that. Or also if there's a door that slammed while you're recording that, you know, that person could listen for that as well. So I love to record in teams when doing that. And one last tip about recording, this is less about recording and more about editing the audio. I'd recommend don't add background audio or music to your video. This could be a really challenging issue with accessibility, confusing for people, distracting. And so it does make a more pleasant video. You know, we often see videos online that have audio, you know, calm music in the background while something's playing, but this could really interfere with the accessibility of the narration that you've recorded. Okay, Lightworks is fantastic. Great. Any other questions? Okay, so let's move on to editing. So this is probably the most complicated part, I think, of, you know, probably the largest learning curve about making a video. Lots of software that you can use for this. Camtasia, as I mentioned, we'll talk about that again. Macs have iMovie that you could use. Adobe has a few products that you can use. PowerPoint even has a feature, I believe only on PCs, that you can record narration at various slides and then export that entire package with the videos and narration that you've recorded within PowerPoint as a video. And so that could be a really easy way to avoid Camtasia if you're just going to keep it to a PowerPoint slide as well. So lots of great options here. Some are free. Not as many free options for editing software, I will say, but you know, but there are quite a few options here that you can use and explore for your libraries. So I do love Camtasia. It's probably the most frequently used piece of software that libraries use for making videos, at least in academic libraries where we have the budget for it. You can record the audio, you could edit video and audio, and you could add effects. This is really great during a database demonstration if you want to zoom into a certain part of the screen, for example, or block out the rest of the screen. Camtasia is really great for being able to do that. It does offer Camtasia a free 1-month trial, but it is a bit pricey. It's $300 per year. And what makes it even trickier is that this is officially by user. And so you can't just get one computer officially. People do this all the time, and it's, you know, Camtasia is not going to come after you, TechSmith, I'd assume, but it's officially licensable by user. And so if you have 8 people at your library who want to use Camtasia, then it could, the cost could go up pretty quickly with Camtasia. The good news is with Camtasia is that there are many free how-to videos, both from TechSmith and online. And so, you know, it's probably one of the best supported editing software packages available for libraries. This is just a screen grab that I took of Camtasia. This is demonstrating how to log into, I believe, library websites. I forget exactly what this video is, but you could see on the left, there are some kind of a menu of options, including voice narration, the media bin on the left. In the middle, you see the screen, and that's what viewers are going to see on the screen at the time. And on the bottom, you see the audio and visual tracks. And it looks like this one was just a simple PowerPoint to video object that we made. And so this is quite easy to make with the PowerPoint in Camtasia. Okay, so some editing tips. So whenever possible, try to have your library stick with one piece of editing software. This is something that we learned a few years ago. Everybody has their own favorite software. I have Camtasia, but if the library ever plans to edit the videos, then if someone used Adobe Premiere, then we would have to go out and try to find a copy of that software. Someone else has to learn it if the employee who originally made the video is no longer there. And so having one system at the library where I work at, it's almost entirely in Camtasia now, making that just the collaboration process and the editing process and the re-editing process is going to be much easier in the future, as we just have certain media files and processes, and everyone just has to learn one thing. So if you could stick with one thing, fantastic. Obviously, Camtasia is expensive and it's harder to do with that, but that is the preferred recommendation for software. Just keep practicing and learning new skills. My first videos that I created 5 or 6 years ago are not very good, but I believe some are still on our website. You'll get better as you get along. What's really another great thing about Narration Script is that they can help you edit the audio and the video, the visuals. So once you recorded the narration, you're not done with that script. It's still going to be a really great guide to help you with the editing process as well. As we mentioned, if you are using screen recordings and a narration script, this could be a little bit tricky. This is probably the hardest thing that I personally had to learn. You have to slow down the video at times, speed it up at times, just so that the breaks in the video are where you want the narration, so that the narration matches the movement on the screen. Before you publish, get peer user feedback for your video. That's really great advice for many things that we do as libraries. And before you publish, also, if there's someone at your library who is the specialist in accessibility, now would be a great time to have them look into the accessibility aspects of your video before you actually publish it on a website. Okay, that was it about editing.
There haven't been any questions, just a lot of comments. So I think you're good
Wonderful.
to keep going.
Wonderful. I look forward to reading those afterwards. Okay, so publishing. So this could often be a tricky part about videos. And so one distinction that I like to make is video hosting versus publishing. And so one thing that I found is that, for an example, when COVID first descended upon the library, we created a lot of videos. We sent them to faculty and students, and all of a sudden we had 15 versions or 15 files that were being shared around that the library suddenly lost control of. And so things that were completely obsolete were still being shared by faculty. And so once you put them out in the real world, if you share the actual video file, you will lose control of that file and any sort of editing abilities on that as well. So what I like to recommend is to host the video only in one location, whether that's going to be in YouTube. At my library, we use software called Cultura. I have no idea if that's an expensive option or not. I assume it probably is, just because it's such a big scale. Hopefully there's other options, but libraries, from what I understand, often use YouTube for hosting. So just put the video in one place, host it, and when you share the video, don't share the actual MP4 file, but share links in the embed codes for that file, and that'll give you, like I said, more control over how people are using that video. And then once you have that video hosted on a platform, then you can link and embed that in all different sorts of locations, social media. One thing that I love about Cultura that YouTube doesn't allow is that we could replace the media in a specific video. So let's say a database has some modifications. We have to go in and edit our video on that database. Then I can go in, edit the video, and then substitute the new recorded video in Cultura in place of the old one. And what this allows is that all of the old links that people access the old video to will now access the new video. And so any embed codes that we had previously shared, any links that we shared, any social media that we had shared with any of these, all of those new links will now point to the new video. And so it's a really great way to control old versions. That old version that you had shared previously suddenly disappears in every single place that you had embedded that or linked to it. So, and it's been immediately replaced by the new ones. And so YouTube unfortunately doesn't allow that, but hopefully there are some free options as well. So videos can be unlisted. Fantastic. Great. It doesn't seem like it allows you, though, to replace an old video with a new one, so you have to share a new link at every time. So, and as I mentioned, the goal is to create only one version of a video and share that through linking and embedding. This is just a screenshot of the Kaltura software that we use at my library, at my university, in fact. And there's the button that says replace media. Everything else about the video stays the same. So the descriptions, for example, the one thing that I do have to change every time is the captions, because the captions are then re-auto generated and we have to go back and re-edit the captions that are created for the new version of the video. Okay. So once again, publishing tips: don't share the video files. Then you lose all control over what happens to those videos. If your video system like YouTube or Kaltura offers auto captions, if you do have a narration script, that's going to make it much easier to edit the auto captions. You could just cut and paste the text that you've already created. If you, and I see a typo right there, I apologize. If you do have a narration script that also allows you to create a transcript that you could also share alongside the video if users choose to download a transcript of the video. Just a couple of questions also to ask yourself at this stage: how will people discover your library's videos? So I think when I first started making videos, we would create videos, put them on the website, and just not get a lot of engagement. So really think about how you're going to get people to watch the videos that you're creating. They are time intensive at times. And so is it through social media? Is it through putting the videos, embedding the videos in the right places on the website, for example? And then are you going to have a single page that's going to host all of your videos? And this could be a really great place to point students and users to. So we have almost all of our videos and tutorials on one page, on one LibGuide at our library. And so what's great about this is that if you say, we have a great video on using our printers in the library, go to this website. If they go to that web page, they're going to find all the other videos there as well, and hopefully discover new things that they weren't looking for, didn't know that they were looking for at first. Okay, video maintenance. This is probably the least fun part of videos.
There was one question that's probably a pretty quick one for you.
Yep.
Somebody asked, where is Kaltura hosted at Syracuse University? Is that how you can replace media?
Yes, so for SU folks, it's at video.syr.edu.
But I believe it is something that you have like an instance of. It's not like YouTube where you have an account and it's like exists on a server outside. It's something you install locally and you have an IT team that maintains it.
Exactly. Yep. And it looks like, yep, SU owns the server. Yes, I believe that is the case. Yeah, that's a little bit out of my pay scale, so I don't know the technical side about the IT background, but it works fantastically for everything that we use it for.
I think it's pretty widely used. I've seen it. Option to embed it within Content DM, for instance, if you have a digital repository. So it obviously has enough like basis. I don't know what the mechanics of it are either.
Yeah, I'd be curious about the costs of that. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so video maintenance, even though you've published your video, there's going to be a lot of things to consider. So one is just assessment. Are your videos as effective as you thought they would be? And so it's really hard to sometimes to measure impact of videos. You can measure the number of views, which is still sometimes important. In my library, we keep track of through a spreadsheet of all the videos that are deployed, and this helps us update and maintain all the videos that we have. We know who's the person in charge of that video, and whether all the files have been backed up, things like that. You could use the script if you have the narration script. I like to keep that Google Doc that I've created for the project up in Google so that we could use that for feedback. If people write in and say, I wish you had talked about this component of the database, then we could add that feedback to the script, and the next time we edit the video, we can include that as well. Really important to make sure that you have all of the files that you need, that you use to create the video in case you need to go back and edit. You don't have to start from scratch. This is everything from the narration script, all the visual assets, all the editing files, so the Camtasia editing files. And so this is really important, especially for the last bullet point. What happens when your library website or tools change? So last summer, our library had a new website. I believe it was last summer. And so almost every video that we offered had to be edited to incorporate the new library website. And so so that was quite a chore. I will say there are probably still a few out there that we still haven't gotten to. Next summer, it's going to be another chore again. The website's going to stay the same, but our main search tool, Summon, is going to be replaced. And so all of our database demonstrations or Summon demonstrations have to be updated as well. So one bit of advice, more videos isn't always better. I think some people think like, let's just get more videos on there and get people what they need, but that just means more videos to maintain. And so it is a big challenge. I will say, not looking forward to next summer and re-editing videos that we edited last summer as well. Okay, just a few additional resources that might be helpful before we close. There's a open access book called Instruction in Libraries and Information Centers. It's got a really fantastic chapter about creating videos and tutorials and other types of learning objects. I think that's fantastic. Just this week, the ACRL Distance and Online Learning section is hosting a virtual poster session. There's about 18 or 20 posters right now that are up there, all different aspects about creating, about supporting online programs, but many up there are related to creating videos, maintaining videos, narration scripts, things like that. And just a shameless plug, I also teach a Library Juice Academy class about making videos and other learning objects. And so we'll be running that in July if anyone would, and that's a really great opportunity to get feedback on a video or tutorial in progress. Okay, so that is it. I will stop sharing my screen. I do see a question. How many people make these videos? Who is responsible for the updates? So I will say I, as the online learning librarian, are the primary person responsible. I don't handle the marketing communications videos. That's a whole separate kind of wing of our library, but all the instructional videos, I would say I'm kind of the responsible party for. And so I do a lot of training with one-on-one and in groups with with my library colleagues. I work with a group of information literacy scholars, some grad students, and they are helping to make videos as well. So I'm working closely with them. And so yeah, it's a lot more work to have a big group of videos than you can imagine. But start small, I think, could really be a great way to reach patrons. So with that, any questions?
The last one I saw come through, and I think it's also helpful that you've been answering them throughout, so there might not be as many like left for the end here. This is great. Thank you so much, John. I think there's, everybody's situation is a little bit different, but I get the sense that people could probably pull bits and pieces of this and make it applicable for wherever they are. I think a good microphone is a good, good microphone, a good setup is important, but not all of it. But you can get that for cheap these days. Yeah. Any final questions? I see a lot of thank yous in the chat. Okay. Well, thanks again, everyone, and I will get the recording out as soon as possible. And we'll have the copy of the slides from John as well that I'll send out with that. And the webinar evaluation form I'm going to put in chat, and it'll also go out with the recording. Please fill this out. Give us feedback on, how we did today and how we could do better. There will also be a link for the certificate. I see a question about that. I'll send that out with the recording as well. That way, you can fill it out then. Actually, I guess I don't have that handy right now. But that'll go out to all registrants or all attendees. All right, thanks again. Thank you all for attending. And if you have other questions, wait. Can't Google Form. Yeah, if you can't do Google Forms, you can send me an email. My email is going to chat.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share like a Word document version of that, Ryan, when I share the slides as well.
Yeah. That template, for sure. If you could share that as a Word document, because if you're on, I know hospitals and some other organizations can't access Google Drive documents. So sounds great. Thank you again, everyone, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.